beautiful friends, it's Amanda here, and today we're talking about some new palettes from Huda Beauty. These are the new Obsessions palettes. We have a warm matte Obsessions and a cool matte Obsessions. As the name implies, these are entirely matte palettes, and these are very, very neutral matte palettes as well. According to the info that they sent along with these palettes, it says that these will be available online and in-store starting on February 27th. I think this video will be out after that, so these should already be available, and it says that they're going to be on the Huda website, at Sephora, and any other retailers that carry the Huda Beauty brand. So no special launch date for the website or Sephora or anything. Should be available everywhere online and in-store on February 27th, and these will be priced at $29 US a piece. Even though these palettes are all matte, there are two different textures in here. There's their regular, just velvety powder matte. They also have a cream to powder matte formula that is appearing in 2 shades in each one of these palettes. So 4 total, 2 cream to powders in each palette. I'm going to point those out along the way as we do the close-ups and the swatches. I do have some comparisons for you, and I'm also going to do a tutorial using the Cool Matte Obsessions palette. But let's start first by taking a close-up look at each one of these. First up, we have the Warm Matte Obsessions. These are the same size, shape, and layout as the previous Obsessions palettes, which means they are a little square 9-pan. All of the ingredients are listed on the back of the outer packaging. There are no shade names either inside or outside. The front cover is a matte look plastic. This is not a soft touch matte. It doesn't have that rubberized type feeling that you find on, for example, NARS packaging. There is a mirror inside, and this does have a locking clasp closure. It's not a magnetic closure. You can kind of tell just by looking that the very top medium warm brown shade is one of those cream to powder mattes. You can kind of tell just by looking at it, and also 2 below that one, so that sort of mid-tone warm beigey color on the very bottom row, those are the 2 cream to powder matte shades. The rest are just their regular velvety powder matte shades. Now I want to show you some swatches of this palette. On top are finger swatches, below are brush swatches. These are done with no primer, just a dry brush, and for my brush I always use an e.l.f. flat eyeshadow brush, and then I clean the brush off using a Vera Mona color switch so that I don't get any shadow transfer between the swatches. That way I can give you the purest possible swatch without having to literally wash my brush or use 9 different brushes. Now let's move on to the Cool Matte Obsessions. Something about this mauvey pink color on the packaging of this palette is just very appealing to me, and it feels very, very Huda Beauty to me. This is my preferred palette among the 2. And I gotta be honest with you, I think this is more neutral than cool. It's cool in comparison to the warm tone one, but this is a pretty neutral undertone palette in my opinion, especially when you see the comparisons. I think you'll see what I mean when you see it compared to some other very cool toned palettes. Like I mentioned previously, this one also has 2 of those cream to powder mattes, the middle shade on the very top row, and then the slightly deeper mauve tone right next to that one, just to the right. Those are the 2 cream to powder mattes in the Cool Tone Matte Obsessions palette. There are definitely some cool tones in here, but that very bottom right shade, the darkest shade on the very bottom row, definitely reads pretty warm to me, or at least once it's applied to the skin, it doesn't look quite as orangey based, but it's still not giving me super cool tones all the way throughout. I'm not going to debate the fact there are definitely some cooler tones in here, but to me, this very much feels like just a more neutral undertone palette, especially in person. Maybe that's why I like it so much. I do see these colors being pretty flattering across a lot of different skin undertones, but there are some shades that are maybe a little bit too similar in both of these palettes, to be honest with you. Seeing them side by side, the cool one definitely looks cool, but it's mostly just cooler in comparison to the warm tones one. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's move on to some comparisons. You know I love a good comparison time. I combined some of the matte shades from other Obsessions palettes and also the big palettes, all from Huda Beauty, to see if, if you have a decent amount of Huda Beauty palettes, you definitely have some pretty similar shades. Here are some mattes I pulled from the Love Fest palette and then the Nude Medium Obsessions palette. These are definitely the closest comparisons of the three I'm doing for the warm mattes today. I also grabbed my Empowered palette. This one does have a mix of warm and cool tones inside, so you can see there are some great warm tones to be had, but that is also mixed in with some of these more grayish cool tones. Not a perfect match, but you could definitely pull some decently close warm tone mattes if you have the Empowered palette. Same thing kind of goes for our next comparison. This is the Naughty Nude palette, another one of the bigger palettes from Huda Beauty. There are only 8 mattes in the Naughty Nude palette, so I do not have a 9th one. I didn't want to just start pulling shimmers. It just didn't feel relevant since we are really focused on mattes in this video. Not a ton of dead-on matches, but again, you could get some pretty similar looks out of these. There's no two ways about that. We're going to move on to some cool matte comparisons now. I pulled the matte shades from the Nude Light and Nude Rich palettes, and this did get pretty close. I do think that Nude Light and Nude Rich tend to pull a little bit more warm in comparison. But really, aside from those more red-toned pinky shades, these are pretty darn close. There's that little group of 3 that are a lot more reddish, but all in all, I think this is a decent comparison. Next one I wanted to pull was the new Nude palette. I feel like this is the palette that really put Huda Beauty on the map. Maybe I think that just because it was my first Huda Beauty palette purchase, but these mattes are almost exactly the same. Again, a little bit more red pulling on some of those pinks, but this is by far the closest of the comparison. So if you have new Nude, you pretty much have these shades covered. And lastly, we have the Rose Quartz palette. This is the one I was thinking of when I said that cool matte doesn't really seem that cool toned. It seems more neutral, because compared to these Rose Quartz palette mattes, it looks positively toasty. The Rose Quartz mattes are a lot more cool toned. But am I seeing this correctly? Maybe you disagree. Maybe you don't think so, but these look a lot more cool toned to me and my eyeballs. Now that you've seen both palettes close up, you've seen swatches, comparisons, and all that fun stuff, I want to show you a tutorial using the Cool Matte Obsessions, just so that you can see these shadows actually in action on the eye, and then I'll wrap up all my thoughts at the end. Alright, here's the deal with these. I just don't think I'm the target audience for these palettes. I really like shimmers. I really am missing some metallic, some shine. Give me a duochrome, give me a sparkle. I don't love an all matte look for me personally. I see people do them all the time and they're beautiful, breathtaking. I think it looks great. It's just not my preferred style. When the all matte aspect is paired with the all neutral aspect, look, I get it. I think that these are going to be super useful for the right person, whether that's a makeup artist who is putting these in their kit to have a little bit of everything, or whether that's somebody who does like a really staple, neutral, matte, go-to type of eye. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I do think there are lots and lots of people in the world who are going to just be thriving with palettes like this. Between the fact that these don't mesh with my own personal style and the fact that they don't really lend anything valuable to my personal collection of makeup. These just aren't really it for me. I think there's a lot of things that they could have done differently to draw me into this release. For example, if there were 4 palettes, keep these, you know, do a cool and a warm, and then do a cool tones and a warm tones, but with color. All matte palettes, but there's like a red, fuchsia, pink, purple one, and then like a blue, green, gray, I don't know. If there was something that just felt a little bit different to me, color story wise, they just fall flat for me. I think you're gonna hear a lot of people who are reviewers say that, because we have these shades pretty much already from Huda, but I don't think that means that this is a bad release. I think that, like I said, a lot of people are gonna find use for these. Formula wise, they're beautifully done. Huda always kills it with textures. Leave it to Huda Beauty to give us multiple textures in an all matte palette. Who else could do that? These blend beautifully, they swatch beautifully, they go on to the eye beautifully, they apply with a finger, they apply with a brush. They're really nice formula wise. For me, it's just not doing much because I have a million billion neutral palettes, but not everybody does. So just because they're not right for me doesn't mean that they don't make sense. I can think of like 10 people in my life that would love this palette and would use it until it was completely panned. Especially the cool one is just more interesting. It's definitely the one I would pick up again. I would definitely pair it with some shimmers. I can see grabbing this and grabbing my Cleona singles or grabbing my Odin's Eye singles, even packing these together for a trip and being really satisfied with that. Performance, top notch. Color story, a little bland for me. But overall, I see why they made them. I just wish that there was a little bit of something more. Even if there was a third palette that was like gray colors, I think that could have really jazzed it up a little bit. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of opinions on this. There always are. I would love to hear what you think about these palettes. Do you see them adding any value to your collection? Are you passing because you already have these shades? I always love to hear what you think about things too, so make sure you leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! That's a wrap. I don't know. I'm fine. Let's start that again. Crushing it, by the way. Hello. Okay. Did it. Did it. I just need a little bit of shine, honestly. I think this looks pretty. It looks pretty. It looks nice on the eye. It's just not, I like shininess. I want shiny, sparkly, shiny sparkles. That was repetitive and redundant. I'm not obsessed with the makeup today. The cheek color is a little lackluster for me. The lip is cute though, and it has lasted forever. I've been wearing this for hours, and it looks really good, I think. Hopefully my neck doesn't look too bad. I filmed another video earlier today and I told the story, but I don't know what order these are gonna go up in. But I got attacked by a wasp. It hurts pretty bad. It looked way worse a couple days ago. But that's why I'm like turtlenecking it up even though it's 80 degrees here, because I'm trying to cover it. Mostly just so that I don't touch it. It doesn't itch, it just hurts. But I'll be okay. I'm fine. I'm not allergic, so could have been a lot worse. That's what's going on with me. How are you? As long as you didn't get attacked by a wasp, you're doing great. All right, I did it. Side note, these Lethal Cosmetics brushes are super good. They're super good. I know they're expensive, but they're like really good. The face ones are really good too. If you're gonna splurge on a brush purchase, I do recommend those Lethal ones. Are really quite nice. That's it. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. I'm glad that you're here. You know, it's always nice to see you, and there's so many of you who consistently leave comments, and I just, you know, I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you down in the comments, and I'm just glad you're here, and I hope that you're having a good day, and if you're not, that's okay. That happens. It's totally normal. Hopefully tomorrow will be better. But either way, we'll be here together, and I'll give you a big old hug. I haven't done it in a while. All right, bring it in. Ugh. Okay, it's gonna be alright. I got your back. Alright? I'll see you soon. I love your face. Okay. Bye.